Welcome to the Open Jaw Pink Couch. The topic of the day is, of course, WestJet. Lyle, so much news in the market coming out of WestJet the last few months. And of course, congratulations on your results, 51st quarter of profitability. Do you feel that WestJet has finally now made it to where it wants to be in terms of the perception in the marketplace?
Well, thanks for that. We're very proud of the continued profitability we've had. And I think WestJet's been where it wants to be in the marketplace for a long time around our core product. Like, we've really brought to Canadians cheaper airfares.
Yes.
We've been a low-cost carrier in Canada for a long time. We've grown the network over the last many years, and we really service the Canadian public really well across North America, into the Caribbean, and of course a little bit into Europe. And I think we'll continue to grow, but you say large capacity, but our capacity growth is single digits, right? We're in the 6 to 8% range typically, which we believe is very consistent with our model to continue to grow the business at a steady pace, but also be able to control our costs while we do it.
Controlling costs, and that's one of the statements that Greg Saretsky made, that he, with the lowest cost, wins. Are you going to be able to maintain low costs with all of the growth?
Well, absolutely. I think as a low-cost carrier, as you know, airplanes are evolving for us, where you have the econo, and then you have the plus or premium economy, and ultimately with the new 787s, we'll have a business class. So you have revenue growth there as well, and you have some cost growth, obviously, but with the revenue growth, you will have margin enhancements. Keeping the costs low for the economy customer is really what we're talking about here, and we've done that for the most part. Obviously, we've grown, and some costs have grown with us, but fuel goes up and down, and we have to adjust to that over time. But I think over the years, you see when the fuel prices are going up and down, we've managed to continue to have good, strong profitability.
Let's talk about the 787 for a moment, because of course that opens up a whole new market opportunity for WestJet. What kind of changes are you going to have to make in order to now attract the corporate clients with, of course, your business class, your lie flat seats? It becomes a completely different business model, does it not?
It is an evolving business model for sure, and we've been getting ready for that for a couple of years. So if you think about the strategy we announced Encore several years ago, and that was a feeder network into our hubs, right? So Encore flies around many cities in Canada, secondary cities we'd say, and that's creating a network for us. We've done our code share, and we announced a joint venture with Delta Airlines, which again will give feed into our network. So we're creating this network throughout domestic Canada and into the US that'll be able to feed our 787 international network. And so we're going to find those passengers in that network now. You're right, today we don't have a lie flat, and those are new customers to us to a certain extent, but the business community wants a network, and we're building that network.
Okay. So in terms of a feeder network, I know you told me last time you were here that Swoop is a completely different airline from WestJet, but it raises so many questions. Of course, you could have used it potentially as a feeder network. Obviously, that decision was made to not do that. But now that you're launching, I think the trade probably has a few questions. One, what role will the travel agents have in Swoop?
Well, let me start off with maybe an analogy.
Okay.
All right. So if you're a customer and you go into Canadian Tire, and you go to ask the manager a question about Mark's Work Warehouse, what would he do? He direct you to Mark Works Warehouse, because he's not going to answer that question. So at WestJet is a separate business from Swoop, right? So if the travel community have questions, the sales organization of WestJet will redirect them to Swoop to get those answers.
Okay, and that's a fair analogy, and I can see your point. But from a consumer's perspective, they won't necessarily see the difference. And if they've got a Swoop PNR, and they're working with a travel agent who does their WestJet bookings, they will likely approach that travel agent to help them.
And that travel agent will have full support, like they do today, on the WestJet ticket with the existing WestJet infrastructure and team that's in place today. And for the Swoop, they'll go to the Swoop team, and it's flyswoop.com, and they'll go there to get any answers or talk to the Swoop team.
Okay. No concerns on WestJet's front on cannibalizing its base, because I think that is probably the bigger issue that is being seen in the marketplace, that eventually you're going to move traffic onto Swoop, move market share, I should say, to Swoop, and therefore start cutting out the agent a little bit more.
Well,
from the distribution channel?
as we talked earlier, the WestJet is going to continue to grow, right? It's going to continue to grow internationally with long-haul flights and also with North American flights. We can grow our network with Delta Airlines and our joint venture and our other code share partners that are out there. So all that's in place. Swoop is out there to attract a different traveler, right? It's going to fly primarily from Hamilton and Abbotsford, right? And those are all low-cost centers for that airline, and it gives them an opportunity to offer what are called ultra-low-cost fares, which is a very different model than where WestJet started as a low-cost carrier, and we fundamentally had no fees in market and fundamentally have very few today compared to ultra-low-cost carriers who have a different. And part of the way to ultra-low-cost carrier keep their costs down is not having a network, because a network costs money as a network expands and grows and so forth. So it's a point-to-point opportunity. It's an opportunity for Canadians to get really, really low fares, and that obviously you can find at flyswoop.com.
And to keep competitors out, I imagine. It's probably a great way to maintain Canadian low fares within Canada with Canadian carriers.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the investors in Swoop are the same investors that are in WestJet.
Right.
And so it's Canadian investors that are investing in growing Swoop for sure. And ultimately, we absolutely want to own that space. And we think there's an opportunity in Canada to do that. We know there's been up to 5 million Canadians driving across the border to fly out of U.S. airports because it has been cheaper for a lot of different reasons. Some of it's taxes, but some of it has been fares. And we're going to be able to compete. And a lot of those passengers we're going to attract to Swoop, is going to be attracted to Swoop, will come out of the 5 million that are driving to the U.S. today.
Very good point. Very good point. I was on your inaugural flight to Scotland, and that was a big deal, crossing the Atlantic. Now we're talking about Paris. Bonjour, Paris. How wonderful. How is that going? Are the sales what you expected?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, Halifax is very excited about it.
Yeah.
You know, their first nonstop into Paris. So sales are good, very strong. We expect the flight will pretty much be sold out. So if you want to get to Paris through Halifax this summer, you better book soon.
Right. Thank you so much for coming in, Lyle. Really, really appreciate the update. You've got your hands full in the next couple of years, and we look forward to having you back on an update in a few months.
Great. Thank you for having me.